Welcome to the Vedic Mystics channel. In recent times, transits have become a trending topic, and for good reason. We are currently witnessing a rare astronomical phenomenon. Saturn, Jupiter, Rahu, and Ketu are all changing signs within a narrow window of less than 2 months. This kind of alignment doesn't happen often and naturally raises questions in the minds of those who follow Vedic astrology. You may be wondering, will these transits be favorable for me or will they pose challenges? While we won't be diving into the specific results of these transits in this video, we will explore something even more essential: how to determine the start and end dates of planetary transits for your unique birth chart. Because here's the truth: it's not just about when a planet changes signs, it's about when that shift begins to influence you personally based on the moon's position in degrees in your natal chart. Understanding the exact timing of these influences gives you the power to prepare, reflect, and align your actions with the movement of the grahas in the sky. The first point of contention in transit analysis is this: should transits be assessed from the moon sign or from the ascendant? This question comes up often, and while both approaches are used in Vedic astrology, my preference is clear. I choose to analyze transits from the moon sign. This isn't just a personal preference, it's grounded in classical authority. Faladipika, one of the cornerstone texts of Jyotisha, addresses this directly in chapter 26, verse 1. Translated, it states, among all the lagnas, the moon's lagna is most important for assessing the effects of transits. Therefore, predictions of transit effects should be made with reference to the moon sign. This verse gives clear priority to the moon sign or Chandralagna when judging the Gochara Phala or the results of planetary transits. Let's now reflect on the fundamental premise of transits in Vedic astrology. At the time of a birth, the grahas are frozen in a unique configuration. This celestial blueprint forms a birth chart or Janma Kundali, which significantly shapes our life's tendencies, patterns, and karmic destiny. But life is not static. The planets continue to move through the sky, and the current positions relative to our birth moon sign also influence our experiences. This ongoing influence is called Gochara or planetary transit. Now, in my view, the impact of transits accounts for roughly 30% of the outcomes we experience. The remaining influence comes from dasha systems, yogas, and of course, Purva Janma Karma, our past life actions. But transits are still crucial, especially for timing events. So, how do grahas give results in Gochara? They produce effects based on the house they occupy from the moon sign at any given moment. For instance, the sun is known to give positive results when it transits through Upachaya houses, that is, the third, sixth, 10th, and 11th houses from the moon. Similarly, Saturn, a slow moving planet, tends to give favorable results when placed in the third, sixth, and 11th houses from the natal moon. These house based effects form the core of Gochara analysis. Now, as I mentioned earlier, We will not be discussing the specific results of upcoming transits in this video. Instead, we will focus on something more fundamental: how to determine which house a graha is transiting in from the moon sign. This is a critical step because without correctly identifying the transiting house, any prediction, whether good or bad, becomes unreliable. The method we will use is very similar to how a Bhav Chalit chart is constructed. To understand the method of determining transit positions, let's take the example of Saturn, a planet known for its slow movement. Before we walk through the method, let's define a few important terms commonly used in Vedic astrology when discussing Saturn's transit. Sade Sati, or the 7.5 year period, also known as Year Natashani in Tamil, refers to the time when Saturn transits the 12th, the 1st, and 2nd houses from the natal moon. Janma Sani is the phase when Saturn is in the same sign as your moon, the first house from the moon. Ashtama Sani refers to the transit of Saturn through the 8th house from the moon, often seen as a period of intense challenges and transformation. Let's apply this with current transits. If your moon sign is Aquarius, Pisces, or Aries, you're currently undergoing Sade Sati. If your moon sign is Pisces, you're in Janma Shani phase. And if your moon sign is Leo, you're experiencing Ashtama Shani. These are traditionally considered problematic transits, and while the intensity varies depending on your entire chart, dasha periods, and spiritual discipline, they often coincide with times of pressure, delays, or karmic reckoning. Understanding which house Saturn is transiting, like the first, 8th, 12th, or 2nd from the moon, is the foundation for judging its influence. In the next segment, we will break down how to calculate this house correctly for any graha, not just Saturn. The technique is systemic, and once you understand it, you'll be able to track transits for yourself with much more clarity. Let's look at a real world example: the national chart of Ukraine. In this chart, the moon is placed at 29 degrees and 10 minutes in Capricorn. If we were to only look at sign based transits, then Saturn, having now entered Pisces, is 2 signs ahead of the moon, which would suggest that Ukraine has completed Sade Sati since Saturn has left the 12th, 1st, and 2nd houses from the moon. But here's where things get interesting and more nuanced. Consider the moment when Saturn had just entered Aquarius at 0 degrees and 1 minute. The question is, had Ukraine completed Janma Shani at that moment? Remember, the moon was at 29 degrees 10 minutes of Capricorn in the natal chart, and Saturn is at 0 degrees 1 minute of Aquarius in transit, essentially barely 51 minutes apart. When Saturn enters Aquarius, one might think Janmashani is over for a moon placed in Capricorn. But in the case of Ukraine, the moon is at 29 degrees and 10 minutes of Capricorn. So when Saturn is at 0 degrees and 1 minute of Aquarius, it's almost exactly aligned with the moon by degree. Let's examine whether real life developments in Ukraine around Saturn's entry into Aquarius showed signs of increased pressure, disruption, or karmic consequence, themes strongly associated with Janmashani. The Russia Ukraine war began on February 24th, 2022, and one of the most brutal phases, the siege of Mariupol, spanned from February 24th to May 20th of 2022. During this exact period, Saturn was moving through 24 degrees 9 minutes Capricorn to 0 degrees 54 minutes Aquarius. Now, recall that Ukraine's natal moon is at 29 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn. So, what was happening? Saturn was slowly crossing over its natal moon, moving through the most sensitive degrees surrounding it, both just before and just after the exact conjunction. This was not just Janma Sani by sign, this was Janma Sani at its most concentrated form, a tight, degree based transit. So we can clearly say the intensity of Janma Shani is not simply about Saturn being in the same sign as the moon. It's when Saturn crosses the exact degree of the moon that the deepest karmic impact often unfolds. This reinforces the importance of using degrees, not just signs, in transit analysis. Now that we understand how intense a transit can be when a graha closely aligns with the degree of the moon, let's discuss how to calculate the house a planet is transiting through, not just by sign, but by degree, using a method similar to the Bhavachalit system. Here's the key idea. We take the moon's degree as the center point of the first house in an equal house system. Let's break that down. In the equal house approach, every house spans 30 degrees. So if moon is at 29 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn, then the first house begins 15 degrees before that point and it ends 15 degrees after. Let's now apply this degree based house determination to Ukraine's chart. Ukraine's moon is at 29 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn. To determine the first house from the moon using the equal house method, we subtract 15 degrees, which gives us 14 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn. We then add 15 degrees, and that gives us 14 degrees 10 minutes Aquarius. So Ukraine's first house spans from 14 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn to 14 degrees 10 minutes Aquarius. This arc is where Janma Shani takes place. Now, let's step back to see the entire arc of Sade Sati. The 12th house spans from 14 degrees 10 minutes Sagittarius to 14 degrees 10 minutes Capricorn. The second house spans from 14 degrees 10 minutes Aquarius to 14 degrees 10 minutes Pisces. So Ukraine's Sade Sati is active when Saturn transits from 14 degrees 10 minutes Sagittarius all the way through 14 degrees 10 minutes Pisces, a 5 sign span covering 90 degrees, but centered exactly around the moon's degree. This approach explains why Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius is still Janma Shani because it's within the first house arc, even though in a different sign. Now, let's apply the same method to find the Ashtama Shani arc. We start by counting 8 houses from the moon's sign, Capricorn, which leads us to Leo. Then we place the moon's natal degree, 29 degrees 10 minutes, in that sign. That becomes a reference point in Leo. So 29 degrees 10 minutes Leo minus 15 degrees, which is 14 degrees 10 minutes Leo, and 29 degrees 10 minutes Leo plus 15 degrees, which is 14 degrees 10 minutes Virgo, become the starting and ending degrees for the 8th house. Thus, Ukraine will go through Ashtama Shani when Saturn transits between 14 degrees 10 minutes Leo and 14 degrees 10 minutes Virgo. A simple rule: just transplant the moon's natal degree into the sign you want to evaluate, like the 8th. Then apply the plus or minus 15 degree arc. This makes determining Janma Shani, Ashtama Shani, or any Gochara effect a matter of clear math, not guesswork. Now, based on an analysis of Ukraine's chart and Saturn's transits, we see that Sade Sati for Ukraine will continue until April 2026. This means the 7.5 year period is still ongoing, but here's the silver lining. The majority of the challenging effects of Sade Sati are behind us. We are currently in the last year of this 7.5 year stretch. To make things clearer for you, let's now look at today's chart, April 18th, 2025, and apply the same method. Step 1 is to find the moon's position. Today it is moon at 9 degrees 45 minutes Sagittarius. Step 2, subtract 15 degrees from the moon's position to determine the start of the first house and also for each house. Subtracting 15 degrees from 9 degrees 45 minutes Sagittarius takes us to 24 degrees 45 minutes Scorpio. So 24 degrees 45 minute Scorpio is the starting point for the first house in this chart. Now, just like before, the first house spans from 24 degrees 45 minutes Scorpio to 24 degrees 45 minutes Sagittarius, with a 30-degree arc for the equal house system. Using this method, let us evaluate Saturn's key transits for today's chart. Janma Sani would occur when Saturn transits from 24 degrees 45 minutes Scorpio to 24 degrees 45 minutes Sagittarius. Sade Sati would occur when Saturn transits from 24 degrees 45 minutes Libra to 24 degrees 45 minutes Capricorn. And Ashtama Sani would occur when Saturn transits from 24 degrees 45 minutes Gemini to 24 degrees 45 minutes Cancer. In conclusion, while we can use transits based on signs for general predictions, especially when you don't have access to a specific birth chart, the most accurate way to determine the start and end dates of transits is by focusing on the degree of the moon in your chart. A key takeaway: if your moon's degree is less than 15 degrees, your transits will start and end sooner. If your moon's degree is more than 15 degrees, your transits will start later and end later. This is why you might hear astrologers say you will see the results of Saturn's transit 6 months before it happens, or you may have to wait a few months after the transit to see the results. These predictions aren't wrong. They are just meant to cover the general period of Saturn's transits for everyone born under the same moon sign, without taking the precise degree into account. So, while these general predictions can give us a broad overview, understanding your personal moon degree allows for more precise timing of the transit effects in your own life.